Hey, Diana, did you know that answering 5 simple questions can solve all your marketing problems?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast, the podcast for lawyers and law firm leaders about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I am your host, Marc Whitehead, alongside of my COO, my number one.
I get to keep that number?
Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, what's up?
Oh, not much, Mark. How are things going? You're post-vacation, so I'm still number one after you
you're
left
still
the firm.
number one after I've been gone for 3 weeks, and I am back and ready to go and full of vim and vigor and ready to I'm already figured out a way to screw with you today. So
I'm still number one. That's all I heard.
You're still number one. Okay, so confession time. So to this morning, I had to get up at 5 o'clock this morning, which is insanely early for me, to take my wife and her friends to the airport. And I'm like, do I just stay up or do I just go back home and take a quick little nap? So I said, so of course the devil told me to take the quick little nap.
Oh, no.
And I wake up at 9 o'clock this morning and I'm like, oh crap, I have all sorts of shit scheduled this morning.
Starting at 9:30.
Starting
9:30?
at,
Yeah.
I started, I'm going to be late today.
Yeah. I wondered what was going on there.
So that was my confession. It's all my wife's fault. Her booking a god awful early flight because she can get first class through her miles, but she has to take the frickin' 5 a.m. flight to New York, and I'm like, just insane. So anyway, I apologize. Oh, by the way, welcome today. Our new producer, Jennifer, is going to be our new producer going forward.
Our new marketing director.
Also our new marketing director. So until we scare her off.
Which you won't.
So hopefully.
We like her, please don't.
Hopefully now that we have Jennifer here, we can go purely live podcasts and not do these Zoom things that we've been doing, which I just hate.
Yeah, that was challenging for both of us for different reasons. Hey, since you're on confession time, can I hit you with something from like completely left field? Mm-hmm. Do you remember our Atomic Habits episode?
Yes, I do.
A couple things on that one. One, did you know it's got an E? Like it's explicit on Apple.
Does it?
Oh my gosh!
Just that one episode?
No, unfortunately, listeners, it's not the only episode. But remember, I was supposed to ask you how you were implementing, because we workshopped Atomic Habits with your calendar. How is that going, Mark?
Miserably.
Oh, great. Okay, it was a very successful episode then, guys.
Well, number one, my first excuse, I've been gone for 3 weeks, so my calendar's now a wreck because we're just jamming things in left and right. And number two, I don't quite have my to-do list down for this quarter since I didn't do my normal quarterly planning because, again, I was out on vacation for basically 4 weeks. So I'm a little befuddled. So
okay.
Mainly I'm just trying to get through the end of this year, and then we'll start January off right.
Okay, let's not say that because I've got goals for this quarter, sir.
Okay,
but also
you got goals.
I've got goals, but also we are talking about marketing today, which has got to make you very happy.
Yes. So here's the fun today. So in my in my bad boyish way, I basically rewrote today's podcast outline and then didn't give a copy to Diana. So we know how you are with your high C. This is going to kill you.
Well, I do not like that at all.
Matter of fact, you threatened to quit.
Or no, not quit, just not show up have a calendaring conflict.
Are you going to be like an air traffic controller and just have a sick out or something?
Is it working for them?
I don't know. I haven't.
Yeah, I know everybody's losing here. Okay, Mark. Today we're talking.
To my knowledge, my wife's plane took off on time this morning, so I don't know.
We're very grateful for everyone that is making it happen during this time. So today we're talking about the marketing flywheel. So I love the flywheel portion of this. You love the marketing portion. So hopefully this will work.
Yes, we will see how this goes. So we're talking about basically building and keeping momentum within your marketing of your law firm. So the marketing flywheel, or the flywheel effect generally, is a concept that we've talked about a lot on this podcast, from Jim Collins' Good to Great, and then I think he incorporates it in practically every other book he wrote after that in some form or fashion. And we've actually had a podcast episode on the business flywheel, which is a more overarching flywheel. But the concept of the flywheel is you start off with small, I'm going to call them small victories, small tasks, small achievements, and each thing builds upon itself until you create some self-sustaining momentum. Am I kind of laying that out?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so we actually talked about the flywheel in episode 16. I'm going to refer to a lot of our prior podcasts because I thought that was actually pretty cool in my crash prep for this podcast.
I want to know how many of our episodes are explicit. How many?
I have now gotten you distracted. Mark,
how many
we are
F-bombs do I have to drop to get us an explicit rating?
I don't know, but let's not try to find them.
I may be pushing that.
We are talking about the monograph, not a monolith, which is the exact opposite of what I want to say when it's a monograph. A very short book by Collins. I think when we did this in episode 16, we think he just needed to publish something that year because it's literally 37 pages. But
I wish more books were like that because that's about my attention span.
It is to the point, but it is originally from Good to Great, which of course is one of our favorites. And so yes, it's basically, so in the monograph, he says that each turn builds upon previous work as you make a series of good decisions, supremely well executed, that compound upon another. Isn't that beautifully written?
It is beautifully written.
If he hadn't published this before AI, I would have said AI wrote that. But it's just a beautiful sentence, and I think that it's the flywheel definition, beautifully said.
Right. So I think I'm going to do this from memory as best I can, but when we talked about our business flywheel, and again, give all credit to my former Atticus APA mentor, coach. I'm not exactly what his title is. Glenn Gutek. And Glenn gave a presentation, and he goes, the 5 questions that every law firm needs to ask in basically running the law firm is, who do you want to serve? How are they going to find you? How are you going to convince them to hire you? How are you going to provide the service? And how are you going to keep that relationship over time? Those are the 5 questions. So I have sort of taken one of those questions and broken it down into 5 sub-questions. And that's going to be basically kind of the way I'm approaching Jim Collins' flywheel when it comes to marketing today, which is how is your ideal client going to find you? So that's marketing. That's the marketing thing. How are they going to find you? And so when you talk about that, what you're talking about is, I think the way we've laid it out is visibility, credibility, conversion, advocacy, referrals, and more visibility. That's sort of in a nutshell the flywheel. In section 2, I'm going to break that down into some questions that I've come up with, the questions you need to ask yourself, which I haven't shown Diana yet. So she's like, just looking at me like, what the hell is he talking about? Right?
Yes. And
I'm getting these looks. Go to the YouTube channel and watch this on YouTube.
Very excited to see what you're going to do with this podcast, Mark.
Anyway, so the 5 questions on the flywheel basically relate, I'm going to call them to the Gutek questions, the Glenn Gutek questions. And I'm sure Glenn got it from somewhere else. He didn't make this up off the top of his head. He read it somewhere and converted it to how to apply it to a law firm. But we still give him credit. Our Attic cousin, we give him all the love. So when we come back, we're going to go through the way Mark and Diana view the marketing flywheel.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
All right, we're back now. We're gonna see if we can stump Diana a little bit on the 5 questions.
Mark is having way too much fun with
I'm
this.
having too much fun with this.
And I'm really considering not showing up for next week's recording session. I'm just going to be, I'm just going to have a conflict.
Well, how about this? How about next time you get to write the outline and you can stump me?
And this is how Mark gets me to do all the work, guys.
Yes, it is. So this is all part of the master plan, so I can do less work and pass it off to Diana. All right, so we're talking about the marketing flywheel. And
the first question,
which is, who is our ideal client? Okay. So we, as a disability firm, have a sort of a unique perspective on who our ideal client is. And I think that's actually a good thing from our perspective, because we're actually searching for clients that in a demographic that nobody else wants. So we're looking for the slightly older client, the 45 to 50-year-old, and in elder law, even older than that, even in the 65 to 70-year-old range. Which I think puts us at a competitive advantage because we're fishing in a demographic pool different from, say, your personal injury lawyers who are all searching for the young people who go off and get themselves hurt. We all know statistically that the people most likely to get into an accident are on the younger side because they like to go off and do fun, wild things and go boom in the night. So automatically, we kind of have a little bit of a competitive advantage. I think estate planning lawyers, same way. They feel the same way. They can fish in a demographic pool that is not touched by a lot of the other marketing efforts by lawyers. So that's the first thing, is who is your ideal client? And what I would say is make sure you stop chasing what I would call the unprofitable client. Now, again, being magnanimous as lawyers, we want to help all, we want to serve all. But the reality is that there is a segment of clients out there that is most profitable. And those are the ones that you really want to target in your marketing. So, for example, what would be our most profitable target in this office?
Doctors, nurses, dentists.
Yes. That would be for the LTD side.
Mm-hmm.
I would say for the Social Security side, we're looking for, the higher wage earner, higher end on the wage earning scale for blue collar workers is a very good demographic for us. Again, typically older, 45, 50. And then of course on the VA department, it's very specific. We're looking for veterans, and those are typically going to be in the 35 to 55 age range. Again, so, we've defined that very clearly in our world, who our ideal client is. And those are the ones that tend to be the most profitable and fit within our strike zone. So that's the first question you ask, is who is your ideal client?
And then I think then you got to figure out how you find that ideal client. Where are they going and what's that client journey look like, right? So,
well, that was question number 2. So,
Oh.
Which is, how do you attract and engage that particular group?
Okay, well, I didn't know the question, Mark, because you didn't give it to me before. So what's the question? So how do you engage
that particular group? Once you've defined that group that is most likely to be your ideal client, who's most likely to be your most profitable client, and promise me, the unprofitable clients will find you regardless. You don't need to market to those guys. Those guys are going to find you anyway.
Yep. And so I think that you've got to be aware of, your client journey. So for example, the first group that I mentioned, the doctors, the dentists, the nurses are not going to be in the same, probably not going to have the same marketing stream the same way that you would for your high wage earners and your blue collar.
Right. So you're going to have to find different ways, different avenues, what I call marketing channels. And we're not talking about ABC, NBC, CBS. We are talking about different marketing methodologies, what we would typically refer to as a different marketing channel, which it might be the speaker circuit. It might be engaging with them, on different chat forums on the internet. It might be engaging like Reddit or something like that. I know we were talking about Reddit yesterday. It might be engaging with them just on your basic SEO work, things like that. Whereas if you move to the more, what I would call the more mainstream, like blue collars section, which now you're probably engaging with them more through things like television, you're engaging with them through your SEO work, maybe your pay-per-click work, paid advertising, things like that. So, how I would market to a doctor is going to be different than how I market to, say, a blue collar, industrial refinery worker.
Right. And so what you're really trying to do with all of these different streams, Mark, is establish what I would just say is legitimacy, right? Whether that's through your SEO work and your Google reviews, making sure that you mention, obviously, that there are people behind what you're doing, because right now you're just a name, whether that's on TV, you're just another lawyer on TV. But when they go and search you, I think, I was preparing for what I thought was going to be this podcast, and I found out that research generally shows that it takes about 6 to 8 touch points for a B2C purchase, from a business to a consumer purchase. So what you're doing is in each of these, what was the question again?
How do you attract and engage them?
So in all of these different methods of engagement, you're trying to establish legitimacy. There are real people behind the lawyer on TV, behind the SEO work. And I think you do that in many different ways. We mentioned a lot that you're double board certified, that, you've been a lawyer for 30 years. And I think that even, some of the other things that we do, your tenured employees. We talk a lot about tenure on the other part of some of these other podcasts that I'm much more comfortable talking about. We talk about, how Melanie's been with you for 30 years. And in a lot of ways, I think that's as much legitimacy for you as, the fact that you're board certified. If an employee is going to stick with you for 30 years, you know what? You're probably a decent enough guy that I should give you my case.
So what you really are talking about, I think, is trust.
Absolutely.
And, remember when we read the book, we haven't done a podcast on high trust leadership yet, have we? Did we? I'm blanking.
Yeah, no, this is appropriate for crickets right now. I think we might have already, actually.
Oh, have we done? So in the book, it talks about different levels of trust.
It's a continuum, yeah.
There's a continuum. So we're not trying to build trust in the sense of that they're going to trust us with their life or trust us with their wife, as I think the quote was. Cynic's quote in the book. But what we're really talking about is sort of an initial level of trust, which is, okay, this person seems legitimate. They're not a shyster. They seem qualified. They don't seem like, a newbie or a hack. That's all you can really get across in a marketing message to the public. You're not going to build deep trust through your marketing efforts, but you do want to, get to that, at least that initial layer of trust. The deep trust that you develop is actually when you get them in the door, and when you can actually talk to them and you can actually spend some time with them, and over time you can build deeper levels of trust. But the initial, when you're basically throwing something up on the internet, or you're throwing up an ad on TV, or even if you're at, giving a seminar to doctors, you're working at that very basic level of trust. That's the deep level of trust is what comes later on in the relationship. That's sort of the end of the flywheel, quite frankly. If we're going to jump right to the end is where you're building that deep layer of trust, where they're actually recommending you to their friends, or they're bringing you a box of cookies, or sending you a thank you note, or going to Google and writing you a Google review. That's when you get the deep level of trust.
Well, since you step on your own outline, Mark,
I step on everybody's outline.
not just so it's not just me. Then I would also mention, referrals are a big thing, obviously, for attorneys. And I think since we're talking about engagement, and again, I don't have the benefit of the question since I didn't have the outline, but what is it again? What are the methods of engagement?
Well, what we're talking about is how do we attract and engage people?
And I think that's the same way engagement is important for your attorney referrals as well. When you work in your participation in different associations and your continued consistent participation in different associations, how you give back to those associations, whether that's Atticus, PILMA, AAJ, you send your attorneys to TTLA all the time. I mean, you show your commitment. And so I think attorneys then also they see you in these multiple different ways, and that says, hey, you know what, I can send my referrals there.
And talking about consistency, this kind of brings it up a little story. The other day I was at a HTLA event, and a lawyer showed up that nobody had seen in probably 10, 12 years. Now, granted, we had COVID and a lot of people just kind of got off the scene, but nobody had seen him in 10 or 12 years, and we barely recognized him.
Oh.
Because, we're all 10 or 12 years older than we used to be. And we were talking to him like, hey, where you been? Just haven't seen you in a while. Oh, I just kind of dropped off the scene and everything. And then we were talking about business, and he was like, yeah, just business hadn't been that great. I'm like, gee, I wonder why. Because you dropped out for 12 damn years. Nobody's seen you in a dozen years. Well, yeah, you're out of the loop. How are we going to... We didn't even know you were still alive. Honestly, you couldn't remember your name.
Are you trying to get that explicit rating on this one, Mark?
What did I say?
Okay,
didn't
never
drop
mind.
an F-bomb.
I think that you're right about completely. I'm glad you agree with me on that one, since I didn't know what the second question was. But what's the third?
The third question is, how do we convert that attention into relationships?
Okay.
So that, again, relationships have a lot of different levels. I mean, at an initial level, they see your ad on TV or on the internet. They call us. They sign up on a one-call close. They sign up via DocuSign. They hadn't met anybody other than the intake specialist, But you've started a relationship now. That is a very superficial relationship right there at the beginning. But then how can, over time, throughout the representation, how can you develop that relationship into one where they move from initial hesitancy, skepticism, but all right, I'll try these people out, to becoming like a stark raving fan that's given us a 5-star Google review and referring their friends and their family and maybe coming back for additional services later? How do you convert that initial attention? You got them over the hump. And honestly, that's not that hard on a contingency fee system like we work under, where just to get them to sign a contract. But now, how do you turn them into the stark raving fan? How do you develop that relationship over time? And we've talked a lot about this. How do we provide that excellent service and those touch points and making memories and to develop that relationship, so it's not just a 1 or 2 year relationship. It's now like a 30-year relationship.
Yep. And, unsurprisingly, I think I'd slightly disagree with you and say that those first impressions are some of the most crucial, because, trust is so superficial at that point and you don't have a relationship. So it's very easy for you to either, ghost the law firm, even if you've signed the contract, or for you to, say, you know what, I didn't mean to call, I'm sorry, wrong number, if you just don't even like the tone. So I think that you've aptly named our, most people would call them a receptionist, but you call our receptionist your directors of first impressions, because that is exactly what they are. You're looking, and actually, I was thinking about this when I thought I was preparing for this podcast. And do you remember, did you pay attention to the PILMA listserv this week? And, someone asked, hey, are there any personality tests for a receptionist? And do you know which one I'm talking about?
I think I breezed through that. I don't remember exactly.
Well,
but I saw a few names of tests, but I didn't recognize any of them.
Well, the response from one of them was like, hey, you know what? There's not really one for a good receptionist. You just want someone who's going to think like you, who's going to carry your culture like you, who's really going to be like you. And I think that that's really what you're hoping for and what you need in that very first, while trust is so superficial. Because, think about it. I'm a Social Security client. I'm, I've just gotten my application denied. Okay, that you told me that would happen, but now I'm already kind of stuck with you. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, switch to another lawyer who's gonna maybe, no, I'm kind of stuck with you. But at the very beginning, you want that to be successful. And so, again, I'm gonna throw out there episode 43 where we talked about creating a successful intake department. They're just really, I think that we've got a great intake team because they're very warm. They have a lot of empathy, compassion, and that shows in their phone.
I love how you can remember all of our episodes, and I can't even remember if we did one on high trust leadership.
Well, I couldn't remember that one either. But also, again, I thought I was preparing for this podcast. I'm winging it at this point.
I love it. See?
So that's, and I think that all the way through ops, from the different things that we do, whether those are automated messages, we're really still big on the no update. And it's the hardest one sometimes to get our team.
Explain to our audience what that means.
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, there's not an update on your case. And communicating that to a client can be very hard. I found much more reticence in that than the, hey, your application's been denied email. That everyone's expects the application to be denied. We tell them that at the beginning.
Yeah, we prep them ahead of time. This application is going to get denied. Do not get upset by it.
This meets expectations. Even if I've designed an infographic, like this is the timeline for your appeals, just your application part of your process. This is going to take a while. But still, one of the hardest messages that I found ops to send is the no update. Hi, Mr. Smith, I'm sorry. I've checked on your case. Everything's, we're proceeding as normal, but there is no update on your case. If you have any new medical records, please let us know. And that's a hard one to send.
Basically, I think we should do a better job of stating what the real facts are. Blame the government. Government's shut down. They're not moving. Nothing's happening.
And the reality is now you actually can. We are very affected by just the daily grind of government at this point. But just generally speaking, and all the investment, Mark, that you've made, I think, in tech, case status, which is a client portal to make it easy for our clients to communicate. All of that is about the client experience, which answers, what's the third question again?
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
There. All right, fine. How do we convert client attention into relationships? That's what we're talking about.
And that's what you're doing, is really making that a relationship through the various touch points.
So I would emphasize, I learned this in trial advocacy, and I think it applies here as well, the concept of primacy and recency. Like, the two most important touch points are the very first one and the very last one, because those are the ones that people remember the most. Not that the ones in the middle are not important, but those are the ones I think that we, that people should focus on the most, which is why, number one, your intake process is so critically important, because how they think about your firm, how they feel about your firm, really the tone gets set right at that initial intake process. And like I said, I'm very proud of our intake team. We have 12 wonderful people down there that do a fabulous job of, bringing in people at the worst point in their lives and giving them some hope that, hey, you have found somebody that can help you. And that's kind of the thing, is give them some hope. And then hopefully we do a good job with the handoff to operations and then get their case processed as quickly as possible and get them paid. But again, that end point, and this is one thing in our firm I think I would like us to work on a little bit more, is when the representation is concluded. I think we do an okay job with that, but I do think we could do, I'm not satisfied with okay. I want to do an outstanding job with that.
Absolutely.
And I want to work on that. That's kind of one of our projects this year, is to think about how we can really make that last touch point before they go off into the world without us, kind of like a big celebration maybe, and then build off of that. And also, you can also repair some damage sometime. I've had that before, where we've had a rough representation with the client, but at the very end, when we got through the hearing and got, and walked out of the hearing victorious, all of the difficulties that had happened throughout the 3 years we were with this client kind of all melted away, and we were hugging it out in the parking lot, celebrating a victory. So, you can overcome some rough starts by a good finish. And that's why I think the finish is kind of so important, and why I really want us to focus on that this coming year.
Yeah. Again, unsurprisingly, I have a food metaphor. Analogy? I don't know which one that would be. But a great dessert will make up for an average meal.
I like it.
Yeah, and also very true.
Damn right it is true.
So what's our fourth question, Mark?
How do we deliver and delight? Now, this has to do with the middle part, the middle of those two ends, the primacy and recency. Like, how do we service the client throughout? Now, one of the things you mentioned was the what do you call it? The no response.
The no update.
The no update. Yes. Unfortunately, that happens a lot when you're dealing with governmental claims, is that we do whatever we can do. We play in the ping pong. We knock the ball back into the other court, in the government's court, waiting for them to hit the ball back to us, and it takes them forever. And there's nothing much we can do about it. We can pester them, but that doesn't really move the needle. So that no update, a lot of that is, a process that we have designed to try to make the representation during the middle phase, the deliver and what I'm going to call the deliver and delight phase, more palatable, because a lot of times we're just sitting around and waiting for months and months and months. And I totally get how the client is frustrated. So it's incumbent upon us to figure out ways to delight the client, which may be a bit excessive, to at least satisfy the client during the middle of that representation, to make sure that we're responsive, to make sure that we're communicative. That's one of the reasons we've installed case status as a technology tool to help clients keep clients engaged and informed. Explain how we use case status to do that.
Well, it's just it's a client portal.
Since it's on our mind right now, it was heavily on our mind this morning, so we're going to talk about case status.
It is. So it's a client portal, but it's also an app. And so, there's something, science tells us there's something about the push notifications and being able to respond directly. I think we all, I think particularly our clientele are used to maybe the, like it's my chart for me. I don't know if that's just a Texas thing or what, but it's my chart for my doctors. And so you're used to the app in terms of getting professional service updates. These are your reminders. And so Case Status is a client portal. It kind of shows you where you are via a pizza tracker, if you will.
The famous Domino's pizza tracker.
And it kind of shows you where you are in the system and how far you may have to go. For example, if you have to get all the way up to a federal appeal, you're just kind of right here at the beginning parts of your claim.
What I like about it is that, you can actually push not only written messages to your client, you can push videos out to your client.
Oh, absolutely.
Explain how that works.
Well, if I had talent that wasn't hip hopping over, for 3 weeks and could record videos for me, you can just send really quick updates. Hey, I think that's really powerful. Hey, Marc Whitehead here, just letting you know that we have checked on your case today, and unfortunately we don't have an update, but that's kind of a good thing. This means that things are proceeding as we expected, and there's no feedback from the government at this point. Thank you for trusting us with your claim. If you have any more medical updates, send them to your case manager, and thank you again.
Yeah. So,
and I think that's very powerful.
Yeah. Some of the other things that we do, I don't know how it is in other legal verticals, but in the disability world, frequently we're writing briefs, arguing our clients' cases, so sharing those briefs with your client is a good way to delight the client. They see something tangible that they can go show their friends, or at least sit around and read at the dinner table. Hey, this is what my lawyer's doing, working for me. So always copy your client on everything you do, just so they know you're doing stuff. Returning the phone calls, being proactive and explaining the process. One of the things that we do with a client at the very beginning, I think, which is part of our initial WOW package, is that we have a client handbook that's specific to each practice area, which explains to them in both written form and through graphical form, through flow charts and so forth, explaining them the process and here's how it works. And there's accompanying video that goes along with that client handbook. So we're trying to wow them right at the very beginning. To my knowledge, very few other firms in the disability world do that. And that's part of our initial wow package. We do send at the end of the representation, sort of a frequently asked question sheet of the questions that we normally get at the end of representation. We try to talk them through it, but they're going to forget a lot of the things we say. So if they have like a very detailed letter, I can't remember how long it is, but it's like 5, 6, 7 pages long of, these are the things that you might come up against, and these are answers to your questions. And by the way, if you can't remember any of this, just call us. So,
well, and I think that you've kind of glossed over one of the biggest things that we do that delights our clients.
Oh, did I miss something? What did I miss?
Well, the very wow packet itself. And I think that, so, you know this. You created this pretty early on when I got here, but it was at conversion from intake to matter if we're using ops speak.
Ops speak. We love ops speak.
Well, when a client becomes a client, when
Yes.
a PC becomes a client, you send them things. And it's not cheap, but what do you send them, Mark?
Geez, I've since lost track of everything that we do send them.
Okay, I got
look
this
at
one.
you're gonna have to answer that question. I look at the substance of things. The client handbook and the video to me is what I'm proud of because that's what I helped create. So
Well, and so I think that, so we send them what Mark calls the wow packet, and it's got his book, the client handbook, as well as just some swag, what I call swag.
Swag. We send swag.
Just different things for them and say, hey, thanks for becoming a client, and maybe some forms. I think that that's helpful. Some RFC forms, give them a little bit of homework to know that we're already thinking about their case. Other firms that we've talked to that I'm hoping we get to do, I'm looking at Jennifer now, is our, hopefully maybe some gift boxes one day. I love that. Maybe some blankets.
Yeah, at Atticus, our Attica cousin Craig Goldenfarb showed his wow packet, and he has a pre-printed big, nice box. I took pictures. I'm going to show you the pictures. I forgot to send you the pictures. And they do the extra step of asking what the client's shirt size is so they can send the appropriate size shirt.
Yep.
I've had this before where people send me t-shirts and they're mediums, and I'm like, really? This boy ain't gonna fit in a medium. I am sorry. That ain't happening. So, he takes, that is an extra little soft touch, which I think you should do. Like, at least ask your client their size if you're going to send them some clothing. He had a bunch of stuff, but I think the most impressive thing was that he had a pre-printed big blue box with big gold foil lettering on it that just looks really snazzy. Like, I wouldn't I just keep the box. I wouldn't even throw the box away.
I've seen some of his stuff before, and I don't know, I'm going to step all over your outline. His pre-printed stuff is great. I love Craig. But I think the gift boxes at different touch points, obviously when you've had a successful conclusion to their case, that's a great opportunity to send a little Yeti or something like that to.
We don't currently do that, but we've talked about it. We want to start doing that.
And for our listeners, I know we've talked about power of moments here. We won't ever do a podcast on that, probably too touchy-feely for Mark, but we'll hopefully do one on unreasonable hospitality here sooner rather than later. But if you want ideas on how to increase your client, what was the word you used, Mark? Delight. Your client's delight. Then I highly recommend those 2 books.
Yeah. All right, last question. How do we measure, refine, and reinforce this success that we have now created?
I love me some data. I don't know.
Oh wow! Now we're in Diana land right now. We're talking data. Data. Is it? Which one is it?
I don't know. I'm gonna go with data.
Well,
data.
On Star Trek, the android was named Data. He wasn't named Data. He was named Data. So that, to me, that's Star Trek is the North Star. So we're gonna go with Data.
All right. So you're talking. So again, because this is the first time I'm hearing the question, listeners, what is the question again?
How do we measure, refine, and reinforce success?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because, we've talked a lot about the halo effect on this podcast. And I mean, even now, and so what's the halo effect, Mark, for some people who maybe not?
Well, the halo effect, the way I would define halo effect, I'm just going to use TV as an example. When you do broadcast TV, a lot of what you're doing is you're marketing your brand, okay? Now, there is some direct response element to it. In other words, call me now, call me now, call me now. But I think the bigger element of TV advertising is just to get your brand out there so your name is recognized. So when the client ultimately goes and searches for best disability lawyer near me, and you're one of the 3 names that pops up in the 3-pack, they pick your name because they have seen your brand before. That's sort of the halo effect.
It's one of those 6 to 8 touch points we mentioned
Right.
earlier. And so one of the things that I think about, if I were to have been prepared for this particular question, Mark, is the fact, one of the things that we learned about in PILMA Summit was the AI overview and the effects of the AI overview. And so, for example, our Google traffic or our traffic to our website may be decreasing because of AI overview, and how you're going to, track the effects of the AI overview. So meaning, hey, they may not be clicking into your actual website, but you may still be one of those in the 3, it's a different 3-pack, but in the AI overview of 3 questions that are related to their question. They may be getting what they want and enough to say, hey, I'm going to call that guy because I saw his TV ad. I see that he's board certified over here. And then when I Googled my question about disability, he popped up in the AI overview. Okay, now I'm going to call. And, that's where we were also talking about, last touch attribution. So it's not necessarily TV ads that they may not be calling your TV phone number, but it might have started a long time ago.
Yeah. So that's the halo effect. So I'm going to take this question slightly different. How do we measure, refine, and reinforce success? I would start with, again, what we don't currently do, but I wish we did do, which would be a post-representation questionnaire, interview, survey. A post-representation survey. Surveying the client on what they liked about us, what they didn't like about us, what they thought we did well, what we could have done better. Now, we do use the 1 to 10 score. What is that thing called again?
The NPS score.
The NPS score. So that is
the
Net Promoter Score. So that is a feature of Case Status, who we love. Now, again, today, we love them more today. That they allow your client to rate your performance at any point in the representation, and in multiple times in the representation, 1 to 10. How were you rating us? And that's valuable information. However, I think I would love to see us go further than that and do a post-representation survey, which is also a great time to ask them for a review, because that's one of the ways that you keep and you reinforce success. Is like you do a great job for somebody, they love you, you get their feedback on how you did, and then while they're feeling good about you, ask them to write a review of you. Usually it's Google, Yelp, maybe sometimes could be other platforms, but those are the main ones. That's how you're reinforcing success, because that leaves breadcrumbs for future clients. This is a good one. So the other day I was searching for a new doctor. I started reading the new doctor's reviews. Turns out one of my good friends wrote a review of this particular doctor. Okay. And I was trying to choose between like 3 different ones. And so so my friend uses him and gave him a 5-star. So I called my friend up and I said, now give me the real scoop. Give me the lowdown. I mean, I was doing serious deep research. To me, changing doctors is a big deal.
Yes, as it is.
As we've noted on other prior podcasts. So he told me the whole scoop and how he was great and how he actually, made a really hard diagnosis that might have actually saved his life and got him to get into a specialist when he still had time to deal with it. And, I may not have picked that doctor had I not looked at that review and seen that my friend had gone to that particular doctor and followed up with him. I'm 4 months in with this new doctor. So far, so good. Very happy. So far, very, very pleased. But that would be an example of trying to reinforce your success by getting, making that representation not last just a year or two, but making that a sort of a lifelong sort of, a perpetual cycle of client value.
Yes. And so,
Why are you laughing?
Mark is having so much fun catching me on my feet. Mark, so again, give me the question one more time.
Okay. How do we measure, refine, and reinforce success?
When I think about refining and reinforcing success in terms of a marketing perspective, and Jim Collins, of course, I think about his fire bullets and cannonballs that we talk about a lot here, doing almost like mini flywheels, because I'm always I'm always encouraging Mark to try new things in marketing, which he pushes back on. It's been a 5-year thing now. So it's a rhythm, but I really think that doing little tweaks to your marketing plan, not overhauling the whole marketing plan, the bread and butter. Obviously yours is SEO. That's the foundation for for your marketing.
Right.
So
most people find us
steady
on the Googles.
Yep. So keeping that steady, but allowing your marketing team to kind of fire bullets, then cannonballs, but fire bullets in terms of trying different marketing strategies. I think that's a great way to refine and reinforce. What's the first thing? Refine and
how do we measure, refine, and reinforce?
Refine and then reinforce. So when you're refining your marketing plan, think about taking little tweaks and trying things almost beta. What did I tell you when I was trying to get you to do something that I wanted to do the other day? I'm like, hey, let's beta this, Mark, in a small market. Just send me out and do this thing, and we don't have to do it with everybody, and we don't have to do it nationwide. Let's just try it with me and this beta, and then if that works, then let's reinforce it, and then you can fire cannonballs.
Right. Exactly. How do we measure these things, though? That's really your strike zone. That's the data.
Yeah. You've got this really cool spreadsheet. I don't know, because I'm laughing. I don't know how you try to track your marketing. It's real easy when you've got QR codes, when you've got specific numbers tied to your TV campaign or to your Facebook posts and all these things. Sure, you can help track and measure all of those things. And I know you track your ROI through a very complicated spreadsheet.
Right. So I would say that spreadsheet is pretty in-depth. It has 17 different marketing channels on it that we measure. The two that I think are the most important, the one that we measure in our big level 10 meeting, which I think are sort of the heartbeat of all of it, is how many referrals did we get from attorneys this week, and how many referrals did we get from clients this week. I think that's really the true measure of how well your flywheel is working, because those are the things that are perpetual. The Google gods can decide to shut you down one day and let you up off the mat the next day. That's something that's totally a separate thing. But the real flywheel effect comes from how many professionals, in our world it's attorneys, continually refer you business, and how many of your clients continually refer your business. And that's really, I think, the mark of how well your flywheel is working. And that's like I said, that's the two things that we look at in our big level 10 meeting every single Tuesday.
Yep. So now that we've been through all 5 questions, Mark, what are we going to do in our closing segment?
All right. So first of all, let's recap the 5 questions. So
I can't help you there because I don't have them.
So the 5 questions is: who is your ideal client? How do we attract and engage them? How do we convert their attention into actual relationships? Not how do we convert them into clients? How do we deliver and delight? That's the big one. How do we delight them so they become stark raving fans? And then how do we measure, refine, and reinforce that success? How do we then convert that into a continual referral cycle? So those are the 5 questions. So when we come back for our final segment, Diana and I are going to butt heads on what are our 5 action steps going forward.
This is Marc Whitehead, lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast. If we've stirred your juices, hit me up with an email at mark@markwhitehead.com. Remember, Mark is spelled with a C. And get on the Successful Barrister newsletter mailing list. Even better, let's set up a call. I'd love to talk to you about working together, talk shop, or just shooting the breeze.
All right, Diana, we're back. All right, so it was noted to me during the break by our producer, Jennifer, that it's my coffee cup that's getting us an explicit rating because it says big ass fans.
If only it were your coffee cup.
Well,
Mark.
we are on YouTube too, so it's clearly on the video big ass fans. But
Are you?
You know what a big ass fan is?
No.
Okay, well, it's either somebody that really loves you. You're one of your.
Oh, well, I know what that is, but is this like a?
No, the really big ass fans are those big industrial fans.
Oh, they're fans.
Yes,
okay.
It's an actual fan.
All right, Mark. What are our 5 action steps going forward?
She just wants this podcast to end. She's just like looking to get out of here.
I am gonna have some words
She's
after
hungry.
this.
She's hungry.
That
And
is
she
very
wants to
true,
go.
too.
My first one is make sure you map out your flywheel. So sketch your client journey from awareness to advocacy. So in other words, from beginning to end, and identify the weak spots in your process. So like I mentioned, I think we could improve. We have the WOW packet at the initial sign up, but I think we could do a better job of a WOW closing when we close the client file, something to give them something memorable to take with them. That's where I think our weak point is. But the whole point is put it down on a piece of paper. What does the client journey from the client perspective look like? And at each of these points, where could you make it better? Where could you improve the client experience with your law firm? And then how in turn can you turn that into a constant referral system? In other words, how do you continue to keep track of that client and keep your message in front of that client even post representation?
My takeaway would be to stick with Collins and fire bullets than cannonballs in terms of your marketing plan or your marketing flywheel. Protect the base, that is whatever's your foundation for your marketing strategy, and then just maybe tweak different things, improve one little thing at a time, whether that's reviews or if you're going to implement a client portal like we did. It just don't overhaul everything all at one time. Protect the base.
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yep.
Yes, and protect the tusks because they're very valuable. So
Exactly.
All right, number 3 on our list: systematize your pushes. Build recurring habits, weekly content, request reviews rather. Make sure you keep training your intake staff because they can wander over time if you don't keep them trained up. And follow up on all communications, but basically make it a system. Don't make it random acts of marketing. That's what I used to hear it called. Do not do random acts of marketing. Make it very systematized. Make sure there's somebody in charge of each touch point. Make sure that it's regularly reviewed. Make sure that your processes are and what you think is happening in your law firm is actually happening. You'd be amazed at how much stuff goes on in your law firm that you don't really realize is going on until you take a close look at it. So that's what I would say. No random acts of marketing. Systematize everything.
And what that goes hand in hand for my takeaway, which would be to measure what you're doing. Don't forget about the halo effect, which we talk about a lot on this podcast. But make sure you're measuring all of your key data points, whether that's your web traffic or the number of referrals, like Marc mentioned, from different sources, your clients as well as your attorneys, your number of 5-star reviews. Those are also something to track because it's all part of that halo effect, as well as, just remember the Google traffic with AIs. It's one of those things that you're always going to be affecting now.
So my last, I think this is the most important. Keep pushing. The worst thing you can do is stop when things are working. Stop. Don't rest on your laurels. Just because things are working doesn't mean they're going to continue to work. Keep pushing. Momentum compounds itself only if you keep feeding it. So always be experimenting. Always be iterating. Always be pushing the boundaries. We love the term A/B testing. We're always testing something. No single push makes a flywheel spin. This is what Jim Collins says. It's the accumulation of consistent effort in one direction. So keep pushing. And obviously always be aware because things over time become obsolete. I used to make a ton of money from clients that I got from the Yellow Pages.
I knew that's where you were going with
If
that.
I would have relied on that for the rest of my career, I would be in the toilet right now. So yeah, things that work now may not necessarily work tomorrow. So you got to keep pushing. I like the closing quote here from Collins. He goes, "Sustainable success is not built on intensity; it's built on consistency." So not intensity, consistency. So keep the flywheel, keep pushing. And do your best not to piss off your number one by substituting them an outline last minute. So Who's doing the outline next week?
I don't know. Are we going to do a podcast next week, Mark?
We're
I may
totally
have a
doing
calendar
podcast.
conflict.
No. I will come to you. Trust me. We will.
You'd
Jennifer,
have to
we can
find-
pack up all this
You'd
stuff.
have to find me,
We
Mark.
know where you live. I know where your paychecks go. And I have a tracking app.
Oh, you somehow
on your
tracked
husband.
me.
It's on your husband, actually. All right. With that, I want to thank everybody for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast, where legal legends are made and disbarments are relatively rare. So I'm Mark.
And I'm Diana.
And together we're the dynamic duo of law. So if you've enjoyed this episode today, rate and review it and share it with your fellow overworked lawyers who could use a little inspiration and maybe a little kick in the butt. I might get us an explicit rating right there.
I think your mug did it for us.
I think it did. So make sure you follow us. And for more episodes and resources, check out successfulbarrister.com or hit me up with an email, mark@markwhitehead.com. Remember, Mark is spelled with a C. And don't forget to visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability law firm at disabilitydenials.com. And until next time, great practice, great life, and try not to get disbarred doing it.
Bye.